The story of Job, the man God called his servant. In the distant land of Uz lived a man whose name was Job. He was upright and blameless, a man who feared God and turned away from all evil. His life was filled with abundance, 7 sons and 3 daughters, herds and flocks that covered the land, servants beyond counting, and honor among the people. He was the greatest man of the East, not only in wealth but in wisdom and reverence. His days were marked with devotion, for after his children feasted, Job would rise early to offer sacrifices on their behalf, saying, "Perhaps they have sinned in their hearts." Such was the righteousness of Job, who built his house upon the foundation of faith. But beyond the veil of earth, in the courts of heaven, a shadow moved. The angels stood before the throne of the Almighty, and with them came Satan, the accuser. The Lord said to him, "Have you considered my servant Job? None is like him in all the earth, faithful, upright, blameless, fearing God, shunning evil." But Satan sneered and answered, "Does Job fear God for nothing? You have built a hedge around him, blessed the work of his hands until he overflows. But strike all he has, and he will curse you to your face." And the Lord replied, "Very well. All that he has is in your hand. Only upon the man himself do not lay a finger." So it began. In a single day, messengers came, one after the other, each voice heavier with grief than the last. One declared that raiders had stolen Job's oxen and donkeys, cutting down his servants. Another cried that fire from heaven consumed his sheep. A third gasped that Chaldean raiders had carried off his camels. And then the final blow fell like a thunderclap. The house where his sons and daughters feasted was struck by a great wind, collapsing upon them, and all were gone. The strength of a father broke. Job tore his robe, shaved his head, and fell upon the earth in agony. Yet his lips did not curse. Instead, he whispered through tears, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I shall return. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." But Satan was not finished. Again the hosts of heaven gathered, and again the adversary came. The Lord said to him, "Job holds fast his integrity, though you moved me against him without cause." And Satan hissed, "Skin for skin, strike his flesh, and he will curse you." And the Lord gave him leave. "He is in your hand, but spare his life." So Satan struck Job with sores, from the crown of his head to the soles of his feet. The man who had once been clothed in glory sat among ashes, scraping his wounds with pottery. His wife, hollow with despair, said, "Are you still holding fast? Curse God and die." But Job replied, "Shall we receive good from God and not also evil?" And still he did not sin with his lips.
3 friends came to see him, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar. They saw him from afar and wept, tearing their robes, sprinkling dust on their heads. For 7 days and nights they sat beside him in silence, for his pain was too deep for words. At last Job spoke. His lament rose like a storm. He cursed the day of his birth, longing for darkness to swallow it, questioning why life is given to those in misery. His friends answered him, each voice heavy with accusation. Eliphaz told him his suffering was discipline. Bildad claimed his children died for their sins. Zophar insisted he deserved worse. But Job, broken yet unyielding, defended his innocence. He cried out against the silence of heaven, asking why the wicked thrive while the righteous bleed. He begged for a mediator, someone to bridge the chasm between man and God. His heart swung between despair and the flicker of unshakable faith, declaring, "I know that my Redeemer lives, and that in the end he will stand upon the earth." The speeches raged back and forth until a younger man, Elihu, who had listened in silence, burned with words. He rebuked Job for justifying himself instead of God, and he rebuked the friends for their shallow counsel. He proclaimed that suffering can refine like fire, that it can turn men back from destruction, that the Almighty speaks in ways beyond human sight. He exalted the greatness of God, preparing the way for what came next. For then, the skies themselves broke open. Out of the whirlwind, the voice of the Almighty thundered across the earth. "Who is this that darkens counsel with words without knowledge? Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Who shut in the sea with doors when it burst forth from the womb? Have you commanded the morning, or entered the storehouses of the snow? Can you bind the chains of the Pleiades, or loose the cords of Orion? Do you give the horse its strength? Do you draw out Leviathan with a hook?" The questions fell like lightning bolts, shattering pride, lifting Job's eyes from dust to the vastness of creation. God spoke not of Job's suffering, but of his power, his wisdom, his dominion over the mysteries of the universe. Job trembled, humbled, undone. He placed his hand over his mouth and whispered, "I have uttered what I did not understand, things too wonderful for me. My ears had heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you. Therefore I repent in dust and ashes." The Lord turned in anger toward Job's friends. "You have not spoken the truth about me as my servant Job has. Offer a sacrifice and let Job pray for you, for I will accept his prayer." They obeyed, and Job, who had been falsely accused, prayed for them, and his prayer was received. Then the tide turned. The Lord restored Job, blessing him with twice as much as before. His brothers and sisters returned to his table, his flocks multiplied, his wealth overflowed, his household was rebuilt. He was given again 7 sons and 3 daughters, and his daughters were the most beautiful in the land, given inheritance alongside their brothers. Job lived 140 years, long enough to see 4 generations of his descendants. And when he died old, full of years, full of honor, his story echoing through eternity. Thus the man who once sat in ashes, stripped of all, became a monument of endurance. Job's life became the everlasting reminder that suffering is not always punishment, that the wisdom of God towers above human reason, and that in the face of mystery and storm, faith can stand unbroken. His story thunders through time, that man is small, God is vast, and though we walk through ashes, the hand of the Almighty still holds the final word.